New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Lipakshi Khurana, coming up in the next 30 minutes. Israel PM says conflict could end tomorrow if Hamas laid down their arms and returned all hostages. US President hails Sinwar death, says it's time to move on. Hezbollah announces new escalating phase in conflict with Israel, says a large-scale attack is imminent. North Korean leader calls South Korea a foreign and hostile country, says road blast mark end of evil relationship with the South. India's President Draupadi Murmu to hold bilateral talks with Malawi leadership to strengthening ties between two nations. Well, on to the details. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu late on Thursday said that the killing of Hamas chief Yahya Sinwar was the beginning of the end of the war in Gaza. Speaking after the military confirmed it had killed Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar, Netanyahu said there could be an end to the war in Gaza if Hamas laid down their arms and returned all the hostages.
Yahya Sinwar is dead. He was killed in Rafah by the brave soldiers of the Israel Defense Forces. While this is not the end of the war in Gaza, it's the beginning of the end. To the people of Gaza, I have a simple message. This war can end tomorrow. It can end if Hamas lays down its arms and returns our hostages.
Well, confirming the assassination of Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar, Israel's defense minister Yoav Gallant calls on Hamas fighters to release the hostages and surrender.
The state of Israel has brought justice with the elimination of Yahya Sinwar, a wild murderer and terrorist. Yahya Sinwar is the terrorist, the master terrorist, who planned and carried out the 7th of October massacre, during which so many innocent Israelis were murdered: children, women, and the elderly.
Well, the death of the architect of October 7 attack on Israel last year represents a major boost to the Israeli military. It released a video of moments just before Hamas chief Sinwar's death. Israeli Army spokesperson Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari said there were no signs that Israeli hostages had been present in that building.
Our work is not done. We will not rest until we bring home all our hostages by any means. And we will continue to operate until we complete all our missions in defense of the people of Israel.
Well, US President Joe Biden hailed Israel's killing of Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar as a good day for the world. Talking to media at Berlin airport, Biden said there was now an opportunity to move on to a ceasefire in Gaza.
It's a good day for the world. I call these in now to congratulate him getting Sinwar. He had a lot of blood in his hands. American blood, Israeli blood, and others. And I told him that we were really pleased with his actions, and further that now's the time to move on. Move toward a ceasefire in Gaza, make sure that we move in the direction that we're going to be in a position to make things better for the whole world. It's time for this war to end and bring these hostages home.
Terming the death of Hamas chief a turning point, French President Emmanuel Macron said it offered a crucial opportunity to end Israel-Hamas conflict in Gaza. Speaking at a press conference after meeting with other EU leaders at a summit in Brussels, Macron said this is the occasion should be seized upon so that all the hostages can be freed and so that the war can be finally stopped.
This day is a turning point, as well as a military success for Israel. I think, as I say to the Israeli families of October 7, this occasion should be seized upon so that all hostages can be freed and so that the war can finally be stopped. Indeed, it is necessary to put an end to military operations and after this result, accept a ceasefire in Gaza to finally open a credible political perspective for both Israelis and Palestinians.
Well, Hezbollah has meanwhile announced a new and escalating phase of its conflict with Israel. In a statement early on Friday, the terror group said the Islamic Resistance Operations Room had decided Israel will be targeted in the coming days. The statement reads, Hezbollah announces a transition to a new and escalatory phase in the confrontation with the Israeli enemy, which will be reflected in the developments and events of the coming days. The announcement came after the Israeli military on Thursday said its forces killed Yahya Sinwar, the leader of Hamas, which is a Hezbollah ally. The statement, however, made no mention of the Hamas chief. And tensions on the Korean Peninsula have reached a new high as North Korean leader Kim Jong Un declared South Korea a hostile state. This follows a constitutional amendment that formally drops the goal of reunifying the two Koreas. Speaking at the Second Corps headquarters on Thursday, Kim emphasized the growing threat from the South Korea-US alliance and the enhanced military maneuvers, calling for a stronger North Korean nuclear deterrent. North Korea has blasted road and rail links with the South, signaling not just the physical severing of ties, but what Kim calls the end of the evil relationship with Seoul. He declared this marks the complete removal of any hope of reunification, pushing forward a two-state system. And Kenya's Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua was ousted from office on Thursday after being impeached in an unprecedented political saga that has gripped the nation. In a historic move, the Senate voted to impeach Gachagua on 5 of 11 charges after a similar motion was overwhelmingly approved by the lower house National Assembly last week. The vote capped a day of high drama, which saw the embattled 59-year-old known as Ricky G fail to testify in his defense after being admitted to hospital with severe chest pains. He's the first deputy president to be sacked in this manner since impeachment was introduced in Kenya's revised 2010 constitution. Gachagua was found guilty on charges of gross violation of the constitution, including threatening judges and practicing ethnically divisive politics, but cleared of others, including corruption and money laundering. And U.S. President Joe Biden arrived in Berlin on Thursday for a rapid visit to discuss Russia's invasion of Ukraine with the leaders of Germany, France and Britain as Kyiv urges its Western allies to take urgent steps to end the fighting. Biden had originally been scheduled to convene a broader meeting of Ukraine's military supporters at the U.S. Ramstein Air Base in Germany last week during a planned 3-day state visit to the country that would have been the first in nearly 40 years. He cancelled that trip to focus on dealing with Hurricane Milton, but is making up for it with a quick visit this week. The president will hold bilateral talks on Friday with Germany's president and chancellor before a planned meeting with the European Quad in the noontime. And European Union leaders agreed on Thursday to use all their leverage, including trade, development, aid and visa policy, to speed up returns of migrants illegally entering the bloc and asked the European Commission to urgently draft a law. Immigration is a highly sensitive topic in most of the bloc's 27 member states. Leaky external EU borders are destroying the EU's Schengen passport free travel area. This has also helped in the rise of far-right parties and making migration a key political problem. Out of 484,000 non-EU citizens ordered to leave the EU last year, only 20% returned home. The leaders supported Poland in its plan to temporarily suspend accepting asylum applications from migrants pushed across the country's eastern border by Belarus and Russia. EU leaders also discussed setting up return hubs in countries outside the EU where migrants whose EU asylum bids were refused could await deportation to their home country, providing it was safe to return them there. And not all leaders were enthusiastic about the idea of setting up return hubs. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz said that it was a country as big as Germany. Asylum processing hubs outside the bloc would only be able to handle a fraction of the request.
It is clear that irregular migration must be reduced. You know that we have taken measures in Germany by improving and speeding up our own procedures, by introducing border controls, which have led to a significant reduction in the number of people arriving in Germany irregularly. And we will continue along with this path. Opt-out is not provided for. They both know that. The Dutch have even said so.
Well, while Spanish Socialist Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez said migration was a positive phenomenon, something that Spain and other European economies desperately needed to prop up ailing birth rates and their welfare states.
If we want to face the demographic challenge in Europe, if we want to ensure the sustainability of our pensions and the welfare state, and also guarantee the economic growth that Spain or Europe as a whole are currently experiencing, we also need the contribution of migration, and that migration has to be regular, safe and orderly. I say it clearly. We are not in favor of those kinds of formulas because they do not address any of the problems and create new ones. They do not tackle the issues and create new problems.
Well, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and NATO chief Mark Rutte presented a unified front in Brussels that followed Kyiv's pitch for victory to EU leaders and NATO defense ministers. Mark Rutte said NATO members will not lose their shared will to support Ukraine, and Russian President Vladimir Putin would be working wrong to think otherwise. During the press conference, Rutte also said it was essential NATO continue to provide the country with military aid. Zelensky also reminded his allies that some commitments made at the NATO summit in July were still waiting to be fulfilled.
Strengthening of Ukraine, it's not only depending on the weapon, this kind or that kind, it's depending on the will. If our partners will not lose their unity, we will not lose.
We will not lose that unity.
It's
you
so
can count
important.
on that. And my message today to Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin is that if he thinks we will not. And today again is evidence. Look what the Australians have done, what the Germans are doing, what the US has done today. Again, announcing almost $500 million in anti-missile defense systems.
Well, updates now on U.S. presidential polls. The polls opened for early voting on Thursday in the presidential battleground of North Carolina, just weeks after Hurricane Helene left some residents still without power, running water and phone services. North Carolina could be crucial in determining a winner in the U.S. presidential race, as its voting preferences could swing either way. Supporters of both Harris and Trump were vocal as Hurricane Helene, which killed more than 200 people across 6 states, has sparked questions on how it might impact voter turnout. Polls show a very tight race with a handful of swing states likely to determine the winner, as Trump and Harris are in a dead heat in North Carolina. A survey showed Trump with 48% support in state polls as compared to Harris, who's got 47.5% support. And still to come in this edition of DD India Live. 10 social media handles suspended for issuing Hawks bomb threat to the airliners. Sea phase of joint naval drill exercise Malabar in Bay of Bengal to conclude today. And South Africa stuns defending champions Australia by 8 wickets to reach the finals of ICC Women's World Cup 2024. Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Lipakshi Khurana, and moving on. India's President Draupadi Murmu is currently on a 3-day state visit in Malawi till October 19th, where she will be meeting political and business leaders to strengthen further ties with the African nation.
President Draupadi Murmu, who arrived on a 3-day state visit to the Southeast African country Malawi on Thursday, will hold bilateral meetings with the state leadership and other dignitaries to focus on issues to improve trade and economic activities between the two countries. Soon after arrival, President Murmu addressed the India-Malawi Business Roundtable, where she said that both countries can come together to find synergy in many ways.
मुझे ये जानकर भी प्रसन्नता हो रही है कि भारत के बिजनेस कम्युनिटी का एक व्यापार प्रतिनिधि मंडल भी मलावी के दौर पे आए हैं और मैं आशा करती हूँ कि वे हमारे व्यापार और आर्थिक संबंधों में विस्तार करेंगे। हमारे सहयोग के मुख्य स्तंभ डेवलपमेंट पार्टनरशिप, कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग, व्यापार और आर्थिक सहयोग, रक्षा, सुरक्षा और लोगों से लोगों का संपर्क है।
She is expected to hold bilateral talks with Malawi's President, Dr. Lazarus Chakwera, on strengthening Malawi-India relations. Addressing the Indian diaspora on Thursday evening, President Murmu praised the Indian community in Malawi for their significant contribution to the country's society and economy. She praised them for being a virtual connection between the two countries.
प्रवासी भारतीयों ने मलावी में विभिन्न सामाजिक और व्यवसायिक क्षेत्रों में महत्वपूर्ण योगदान दिया है।
This visit is the last leg of President Murmu's week-long 3-nation visit to Algeria, Mauritania and Malawi, with a focus on improving trade and bilateral relationships in the African region. The visit also comes exactly a year after the African Union was inducted in the G20 group during India's presidency last year.
Malawi is one of the few countries in the African continent which does not have a history of conflict or a war. In fact, it is one of the most stable and safest nations for investors. While India and Malawi are already trading partners, President Draupadi Murmu's visit to Malawi is only going to add strength to this economic relationship between the two countries. With camera person Sandeep in Lilongwe, Malawi, Amit Mukherjee for DD India.
Well, in yet another sharp response following Canadian PM Justin Trudeau's admission of having no hard evidence against India, India has held Trudeau responsible for damaging India-Canada ties. On Thursday, India's Foreign Ministry rebuffed PM Trudeau's claims, citing pending 26 extraditions request, marking a significant escalation in the ongoing diplomatic tensions. Meanwhile, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau continues to face flack not only from India but also back home. We get you more details in the report that follows.
We have made our position very clear on this particular matter. Yesterday, we had again issued a statement saying that Canada has leveled serious allegations but has so far not given any evidence to back it up. As regards our stance on the allegations, we will naturally reject false imputations against our diplomats. We had summoned the Acting High Commissioner of Canada and thereafter conveyed that we had no faith that the Canadian government will look after the safety of our diplomats.
On Thursday, once again, the External Affairs Ministry of India hit back at Canada, mincing no words on unsubstantiated allegations levelled by Canadian government and calling them politically motivated. This comes close on the heels of Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau being subjected to intense media scrutiny back home for failing to provide any credible evidence on alleged involvement of Indian diplomats in killing of Canadian extremist Hardeep Singh Nijjar in June 2023. While exposing the inaction of the Canadian administration, India's Ministry of External Affairs revealed the names of anti-India elements openly espousing extremism, violence and separatist ideology. According to India's Foreign Ministry, there are at least 26 extradition requests pending from the Canadian side.
There are 26 extradition requests pending with the Canadian side. These are over the last decade or more. Along with it, there are several provisional arrest requests which are also pending with the Canadian side of several criminals. Some of the notable ones who've been charged with terror and related crimes, I would like to name them. They are Gurjeet Singh, Gurjinder Singh, Gurpreet Singh, Lakhbir Singh Landa, and Arshdeep Singh Gill.
Prime Minister Trudeau's close ally, Member Parliament Jagmeet Singh, staged a walkout from a presser while failing to answer a pointed question on imposition of sanctions on India. This has forced a larger question on the intent and nature of these acquisitions, precipitating the diplomatic crises between India and Canada further. While India sticks to its stance, Prime Minister Trudeau testifying before Canada's Foreign Interference Inquiry with just intelligence and not hard evidentiary proof clearly puts his credibility and the credibility of these serious acquisitions on India in a serious dock. Sakal Bhatt's report for DD India.
Well, with an aim to focus on enhancing bilateral trade relations, promoting India as a global investment hub and participating in crucial multilateral economic discussions, Union Minister of Finance and Corporate Affairs Nirmala Sitharaman is in Mexico on US visit. This visit comes at a time when India is actively seeking to strengthen its economic ties with global partners and position itself as a significant player in the global financial landscape. In Mexico, the finance minister chaired the Tech Leaders Roundtable at the Chamber of Commerce and highlighted that rapid transformation that has been taking place in India while working towards the goal of Viksit Bharat in 2047. Following engagements in Mexico, Sitharaman will travel to the US, where she will attend the IMF World Bank annual meetings in Washington, D.C. And the sea phase of Exercise Malabar, the naval drill featuring the navies of India, the US, Australia and Japan, is to conclude on Friday. Naval warships, embarked integral helicopters and long-range maritime patrol aircraft from the 4 countries are exercising in unison in the Bay of Bengal as part of the exercise. It began on Monday off the coast of Visakhapatnam. The participating navies are engaged in a wide range of maritime warfare operations covering the surface, subsurface and air warfare domains. According to a defense ministry, this phase of the naval drills will further strengthen interoperability between the participating nations and contribute towards enhancing regional security and stability in the Indo-Pacific. And intensifying its probe on the Hawks bomb threats received by several domestic and international flights in India, about 10 social media handles were suspended or blocked by cyber security agencies till now. As per officials, these handles were analyzed by a joint team of cyber, aviation security and intelligence agencies, following which orders were issued to suspend these accounts as they continue to issue mindless threats. Early on Wednesday, Delhi police registered an FIR in connection with the bomb threat to Bengaluru-bound Akasa Air flight carrying 180 people and also launched a probe in 7 other similar cases reported at Indira Gandhi International Airport this month. And the biggest and brightest supermoon of the year amazed people across India with stunning views from various parts of the country. A supermoon is a full moon that occurs when the moon is at perigee, its closest distance to the earth. It appears 14% larger and casts 30% more light than a typical full moon, according to the experts. And in sports, India were bundled out for a dismal 46, which is their worst total on home soil, as New Zealand's fast bowlers ran amok in overcast conditions. The tourists got to 180 for the loss of 3 wickets at stumps on the second day of the rain-hit opening test on Thursday. New Zealand swelled their lead to 134 runs and will eye a big total to improve their chances of a first victory over India in the country since 1988. And Anneke Bosch powered South Africa into the ICC Women's T20 World Cup 2024 final with a commanding 74, leading her side to an 8-wicket victory over defending champions Australia. South Africa skipper Woolward won the toss and opted to bowl, with South Africa restricting Australia to 134 for 5 despite a late surge from the Aussies. Boss career best knock helped South Africa chase down Australia's total of 135 in just 17.2 overs. Captain Laura Woolward also contributed with a composed 42 from 37 balls before being dismissed in the 15th over. Favourites Australia in the first ICC tournament after Meg Lanning's retirement missed key player Alaisi Hele due to injury and ended their campaign in the semi-finals. All right, that's all for this edition of DD India Live. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. Well, we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Lipakshi Khurana from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India Live.